Morena koutou. I'd like to welcome everybody to the council meeting here today. I'm standing in for Chair Tui, who's not available today, and I'd just like to we don't need to have a health and safety briefing because there's no members of the public here, so I assume all the staff and councillors know the way out. And I'd just like to begin with a karakia. Tēnei au, tēnei mātou, he kai kauni hira, he kāwinga I ngā whakataonga, I ngā tikanga, ki uta, ki tai. Kia rewa ai ngā iwi katoa o te tai tokoro. Haumie, huie, tai. Kia ora. Now, we've got an auspicious start today. For the first time, we actually have a te reo translator in Kawati, and so that's quite a memorable occasion. So I'm going to ask Peter Lucas Jones to mihi that for us. Thank you.
O tēnā koe te hea mana, tuatahi e mihi ana hau ki a kuna ture po koe te tangata I tuku I te reo whakamoimeti ki te runga rawa. Kia tau mai ngā manaakitanga o te runga rawa ki runga I a tātou. Ka huri a hau ki o tātou mema, ka huri a hau ki tō tātou tūaki me ngā kaimahi. Tēnā koutou e ngā kaimahi. He rā hō tēnei, no reira ka mihi hoki a hau ki a koe Kawati e haere mai nei ki te whakamauri I ngā kōrero. Nā te mea he mea nui ki te kōrero I te reo Māori I ngā wā o te hoki. Reira nā ngā piki mai, ka whakaaro ki a rātou mā, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Nā reira, ka āki te wā te hea mana.
I'd just like to acknowledge, for those who are on the live feed, that we have Councillor Marty Robinson on Teams or Zoom today, and also we have our independent financial advisor, Stuart Henderson. So, mihi to you both. I'd like to start with apologies. Do we have any apologies? I've received two. Apologies from Tui, shortly our chair, who's unavailable, and also Councillor Joe Carr, who's actually just returning from the doctors, so he'll be only apologising for lateness because he'll be joining us very soon. Thank you. Would someone like to move? Amy McDonald, second John Black. All those in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Okay, we'll take conflicts of interest as they arise.
This point after the declarations of conflict of interest, could we have a mover and seconder that we receive the tabled agenda?
Like it now?
Yeah,
I'm happy to move. Yeah.
We need a mover and a seconder to receive the other tabled item. Move.
Item 4 is
item 4.0A, I think it is. Yep. Move Councillor McDonald, second Councillor Crawford. All those in favour? Contrary? Carried. Right, item 5, council minutes and action sheet. Confirmation of minutes, 13th of December. Seems so long ago. It was. Is someone who was present willing to move those minutes?
I'll move them.
We have Councillor Stolwick had his hand up first, and then Councillor Jones. Are there any comment? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Contrary? Carried. Matters arising? Are there any matters arising? I'm just running through them. They all look good. Okay. No matters arising. Receipt of action sheet. Item 5.2. Does anybody want to raise any of those four issues?
Move it first.
Oh, yes, a mover.
Yeah, I'll move, thanks.
Councillor Stolwick, second. Councillor Jones.
And I do have a question.
Before we put it, questions.
So, Chair, just is the current calendar on our Big Tin calendar, that's the final calendar?
No, it's
No.
changing all the time. It's not changing, it's about to change.
So is there anything on that calendar that we can, like this, because I'm just checking myself for the rest of the year in terms of dates. So committees and subcommittees, they are confirmed in those places?
Yes, but there, like I say, there are changes. So, for example, the Joint Climate Change Adaptation Committee couldn't actually meet in formality because it didn't have a quorum. So we're looking for a new date in April. So there will always be changes. But that's the best information we have.
So council meetings will stay as programmed?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
That document on Big Tin Can through is your version of the truth. Chris constantly updates that with any changes and moving parts from other committees.
Thank you. So I'll work off that one. Perfect.
Excuse me, Keith.
Yep.
So, Chris, what level can you predate your meetings to this level? You know,
So some councils do put out a meeting calendar for the full 3 years for the full triennium. It's purely a capacity thing.
I'm just saying, like in the months that with you know that are finalised. Where are we running at? Finalised meeting dates up to.
So the absolutely finalised meeting dates. I've just put out the meeting notice for March. So March is absolutely formalised, but then at the end of this month, I'll then look at April. So it's basically the end of the month. I'm formalising what's the month ahead.
So it's 1 month rolling.
Yeah, but again, still things can arise that there will be changes. Yeah, but by exception.
Okay, I noticed that items 1 and 3 have already been actioned. Item 2 we've discussed, and item 4 is for April, May. So any other matters from the action sheet? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Regional rates collection, item 6.1. Do I have a mover?
Aye.
Councillor Robinson. Seconder?
Aye.
Councillor Jones. Discussion. Maybe so.
Shall we, does Simon want to speak to it?
Yes, perhaps Simon might want to speak to it.
Yeah, just quickly, Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the paper basically is saying that at this stage of the year, we're behind in the level of rates that we normally collect, right? Primarily driven by Whangarei and the far north, and there's some commentary in there around their reasons. What it's signalling is that by the end of the year, at the end of the year, I normally book provision, which is an allowance that we hold to offset the non-collection of rates. We have a budget of 530,000. At this stage, it's looking like I will need to book more than that. So I don't know yet how much it will be, but if going by what we did last year and how we're trending, I think by the end of this year, this financial year, our provision for doubtful debts will be larger than budget.
Are you thinking closer to 1 million?
No, I'm not thinking close to 1 million. I'm thinking maybe closer to 700,000. We were lucky last year, the previous CEO and I, we topped it up a little bit more than we had to last year, anticipating this was going to, affordability issues, recession, talks of recession anyway, was going to happen this financial year. So I don't think 1 million, but I think more than 530,000 at the end of this year, which we have a surplus to accommodate it at this stage as well.
Thank you, Jeff.
Simon, you know, I've seen you get your debt collectors out working hard and, you know, trying their best. What are some areas you know you're just not going to get? You know, this historical debt that you've been carrying. How much of it is it going to be historical that will just carry on forever? Like, we need to be aware of that and any new stuff.
So what happens is that typically we will collect 93, 94% of our current rate strike. Once we don't collect it, we usually get about 20% of it. We don't get hardly any of it. After 6 years, it's written off. It's statute bar, and it gets written off, and that's why we hold that provision. So, you know, like if we're going to collect about 20% of it, of that outstanding, I try and hold 80% provision. You know, so we're not going to be out of pocket. At this stage, it's up more at 90%, and that's why we're not going down the road of $1 million. We're probably going down the road of a 700 at the end of the year. So yes, we get 93, 94 on current rates. Once it gets into arrears, 20%, but we do hold provision to offset this, the financial burden of that non-collection.
Yeah. Because I'm just aware in the communities, you know, with this cost of living going forward, you know, and you know, the government's talking about increasing taxes to pay for the cyclone, and then we've got rates coming out. A lot of businesses have been affected, and rates might be on the high list of bills to be paid. So is there a trigger point that you would see a trend going forward for the next rate collection as what comes up?
Yeah, what we'll do is after the end of this year, we'll run a 3-year average. And then when we do our budget for next year, you know, so we budget 530, that will go up, you know, that will have to go up in the next round of budget.
Yes, I'm just mindful because we've got this plan coming out with an increase in rates.
Yep.
And, you know, we need a big planning. Like if you increase in rates, it's not going to give us any more money.
No, but we just carry a bigger provision. It's a sort of...
Yeah.
I've got Councillor Marty Robinson, then I'm going to ask Stuart Henderson for a comment.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just coming back to an old favourite of past Councillor Justin Blakey about collection of our own rates. I wonder if it's time that we perhaps review that to instead of the reason being is where the regional council is something that everybody likes to support, loves to support, and we're only a small percentage of the total rates take. And whether those rates provisions you say we have for writing off, the cost of that might be better spent in actually front loading it and collecting our own rates, so that then we may or may not get, and I'd like to hear your advice on this, Simon, as to whether we might collect more rates if we were a smaller rate burden on the ratepayer, and get a lot more to justify that that upfront expenditure. Thanks.
Thank you, Marty. Stuart.
Okay, and just think, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Oh, good, thank you. Just anecdotally, where I'm seeing for some of the other councils, and in particular the territorial councils, is that this issue is pretty widespread. And what we're seeing is a reasonably proactive approach to grossing up the anticipated revenues to accommodate an increase in, because of the current economic climate, that they're front footing, that they're grossing up to accommodate a higher percentage of rates arrears. And I don't think that anything that I've seen in this report is any different to what I'm seeing in others.
Thank you, Stuart. Look, if there's any appetite for us to workshop Marty's idea, we can workshop it. Does anyone like to comment? I know we've addressed this several times before. I guess the challenges are, yeah, the opportunity for us to collect more of the rates because people love the regional council and they might not think quite so much of their district council. On the other hand, if we're a smaller bill, we might be the first one that gets overlooked. I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts and options. What's the thought of the councillors? Would you like to workshop that particular item?
No, I wouldn't. I believe that splitting it would make it more difficult to collect. It is a smaller amount, so why wouldn't you not pay the smaller amount? You know, it's just forget about it. And also, I do believe that it sort of goes against the theme of collective responsibility as well. I've joined, you know, the councils working collaboratively together. I think it's really good getting your rate notice in one. You know, our little pamphlet goes out with district council pamphlet, which I think is great. They get it all at once. If we started splitting them up and had two, you've got the chance they're not going to get there and so forth. So I think it's much better. And apart from that, it's obviously going to be super expensive for us to collect your own rates. So forget what the figure was. Someone will know, $1.5 million, something like that, on top of what we do. I just don't think it's our road we should be going down.
I'd just like to point out that when you've got two collection agencies, the actual cost of the ratepayer would rise. Councillor Jones.
Tēnā koe te hea mana.
Thank you, Chairman.
Kia hau nei me pupuri tonu tātou ki te tikanga kua whakaaetia e tātou he rangatira te mahi tahi ki ngā kaunihera e toru o te taitoke rau.
I think the status quo should be kept, and working together with other councils is a good way to go.
Thank you.
I agree.
John.
As a ratepayer, I don't like paying rates, and I don't see the difference between Northern Regional Council and my own council as Kaipara. And I would rather not spend another $1.5 million. So I'd stay at the status quo. Looking forward though at your rates, and like it's virtually doubled where you were this time last year in arrears. And taking into account the hospitality businesses had a rotten summer, as we didn't have one. Taking into account that these cyclone events have probably cost this community, this Northern, a huge amount of money. I was just wondering, do you predict this will actually go a lot higher? You talked about under $1 million, but I'm just thinking now that what we're going ahead now, for, and cost of repairs and climate conditions, I think it'll actually be higher than what you would have thought a month ago.
Kia ora, Councillor. Just to confirm that at the moment we've collected a total of 51.8% of our rates compared to what the same period last year was 53.6% of our rates. So we are, that's correct, Simon? Yep. Yep, 53.2%. So we're not that far behind. I guess that's why Simon's saying that his anticipation that maybe at the end might be more around 700 rather than something upwards of $1 million. But we are behind, but not too far behind.
Okay, I think we've had given enough of a go. And we've moved. That's been passed. So we'll move on. Item 6.2, financial report.
We'll move in a second, but if we could just put the motion. Please.
Oh, that's what I asked you.
Sorry, I thought you said I asked if you to move.
Oh, sorry. We do have a mover and a seconder. I'd like to put the motion. All those in favour? Contrary? Carried. Item 6.2, financial report. We have a mover.
Happy to move.
Councillor Stallworth, seconded. Councillor Blackwell. Would Tucker like to speak to the item, or is perhaps
I would like to give a high level summary.
Thank you, Simon.
It's okay, real quickly. Yes, so this is a 7-month report to the end of January. At this stage of the year, we're $1.6 million favourable to budget. The big driver, the overtone, the big message is that our salary savings are $1.1 million at this time of the year. Right? Currently, we're actively recruiting for 20 positions. And halfway through the year. Other thing, I know we haven't workshopped this, so I'm hoping I'm going to try and explain it. Is that we have gains from our externally managed funds. We've got 2 million of gains, and we budget to use some of those gains as general funding. And in this report, at the bottom line, going to that surplus, there's $600,000 of gains going to general funding. When you have a $1.6 million favourable variance, you don't really need those gains, right? And what you can do, as Stuart would say, is let's not take the gains and use them as general funding. Let's leave them in the hay barn and grow the size of the hay barn for a rainy day. And that might be the strategy we take going forward. Let's look at our gains, recapitalise them, leave them in the hay barn. If we don't need them as general funding, let's not take them as general funding. So it's at this stage we are, because that's what the budget says we do. But going forward, and I'm happy to really like to hear Stuart's idea on this, is if we don't need gains as general funding, let's leave them in the hay barn. Let's grow our capital base, because the volatility that's out there, we might need them.
I think, Stuart, it's your turn.
No, look, actually, Simon summed up my words really, really well, actually. And it is just broad brush to say, rather than allocate them out, and you're keeping your options open, because we are going through an extremely volatile period, which is impacting on not only our revenues, It's as we're seeing in relation to rate take, but it's also influencing significantly our operating expenditure, given inflationary pressures, and also costs around capex. So I think at the end of the day, I'm a big fan of always being able to have that real flexibility. I call it hay in the hay barn. What is hay in the hay barn there to do? It's to feed out when you need it. So I agree with Simon, and I think it would be it would be a really good thing to consider and perhaps even workshop for annual planning purposes and in terms of setting next year's budget.
We're taking a note of, I think. Yeah. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I guess the thing that comes to mind for me when I look at this, I can see that those savings put us in, I guess, somewhat of a favourable financial position. But to me, I look at these programs of work and the dollars saved to me is work not done. And so I guess that's my real concern. And so maybe Keen, and I know I asked for this last time as well, Jono, but a bit of a comment about how these savings relate to our ability to be achieving our KPIs, and probably looking at biosecurity, that's the real big one for this period. So just keen to understand what the environmental impact is of us being in this, while it's a favourable financial position, maybe not so good for the work on the ground.
Sure, Chair. I have similar questions and concerns. Before Christmas, we sat down and met with each group manager to go through where are they at with delivery against budget, given our recruitment and other expenditure. At this stage, the high-level KPIs that we've got in the LTP, it would seem that we're on track for our high-level KPIs. However, that only tells part of the story. Those are what's your large KPI, LTP KPIs. It was envisaged that we'd provide more of an update to Council through this agenda, but we didn't quite make the reporting deadline. My intention, and it may well be that we do it through a workshop next time, is to come back to you with more of a, this is where we're at the next level down on delivering on our programs and any particular areas that aren't advancing as we had planned. As you can see, there's a large staff saving there. The reality is that in some of those roles, biosecurity is no different to some of the other ones. We're recruiting 2 or 3 times to try and find someone to fill the role. The other reality of the situation is sometimes even when we do recruit people to fill the roles, we're losing someone with a lot of experience, and we're recruiting someone who doesn't have that same level of experience or might be freshly out of university. So not only is the challenge is to actually recruit people in the first place, then you've got the downtime of the year to get them up to speed. Hence why what we were discussing before around retention of our staff is critical.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to point, just to add to Amy's point, I raised this very matter with Tui and John at agenda preview, because it's quite a couple of big areas there, and my concern was that if we, because of the reasons that John has highlighted, would we lose some of our external funds? Because a lot of these programs are externally funded, and I was reassured that no, we're permitted to carry forward that funding, because in some ways we're actually doing government agencies a favour and taking the funding off them to deliver on their behalf. So because they're experiencing the same problems as us. So, and I was given every assurance that basically delivery dates are getting pushed back, but the program delivery outcomes will be the same, and the budgets are fully carry forwardable. That's the term. Right, we'll go Rick first.
Right, fully happy to first of all workshop the hay barn. Leaving the money in the hay in the hay barn. Just got to be careful it doesn't catch on fire or even in Northland get flooded, so we'd lose it all. But definitely workshop that. My question is around bottom of page 22 regarding just want to get this right, Simon, the long-term funds. You've said that this reports till the end of January, but the long-term fund gains accrued for the month of January aren't in here. So can you give us a quick update on those? Because that would change that pink. Well, I think it's supposed to be red, but it's a sort of light pink. Yep.
Yes, so I think I mentioned this in the workshop, in the investment property subcommittee. So at the end of December, we had $1.1 million worth of gains, which was under budget. Then the month of January came along and we got 1.8 million just in that month, right? And so that totals us up to what, at 2.9, which is well ahead of budget. So in the space of a month, we've caught up and gone ahead of budget. Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, that's what I mean. So that doesn't really reflect that pink, that situation.
It doesn't. Now we're going to be green because we're ahead of budget.
Green. Thank you.
So we're in a lumpy situation. As Stuart keeps pointing out, it's things are very volatile. Jeff, you have a question.
Yes, I just got a question for Don. You right, Don? In the biosecurity and the predator-free area, you've got here with 270,000 over budget. Can you explain what is that? Is it, you've got here that it's budgeted contractors and consultants for predator-free, higher than budgeted expenditure.
Yes.
Can you explain how that got to that position?
Some of that is phasing and also to do with journaling. I don't think we're at any risk at all of being caught out without spending funds because, as the Chair has alluded, we can preserve those funds from PF 2050 and revenue and reserves in the coming year. But that the budget at the moment is showing variations because of those two issues, phasing, but also because of some coding errors.
Okay, so because as I understand, you're struggling to get it completed.
Yes,
is
we
it
are.
Just a funding issue from the government? Money hasn't come in, or it's just
it is more to do with working out those relationships on the ground and getting work progressing, particularly when we're working with Hapu and the capacity of those people in those places. So there has been delays in from our original plan, but as I said, we've bought time with that contract, and so we've no risk of losing that funding.
okay. So this overspend by 270, do you think is a mistake or a journal entry?
I think it's I think it's a journal entry that will get squared out at the end of the year.
Okay.
We won't be overspend.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
No, it's okay. Thanks, Chair. It was something on the prior item, so not to worry.
Thanks, Marty. Are there any other questions to this report?
He kōrero aku I te hea mana. Mo te taha ki te whakapaunga pūtea I te whārangi rua te kaumāwha I te wahanga whakamutunga o te whārangi rua te kaumāwha.
Just a question on page 24.
Kei reira ngā kaupapa e rua mo te taha ki ngā awa me ngā mahi hei tiaki I te āhua o te Waipuke.
There's two issues there around flooding.
Ka muti ko awa nui me o Tīria. Me kaha tātou kia matāra hoki tātou ki ngā mahi hei tautoko I ēnei mea e rua. Nā te mea he maha ngā whenua e whai pānga ana ki ēnei kaupapa ara awa nui me o Tīria.
Awanui and Otiria have been badly affected, particularly by the flooding, so we need to pay close attention to these two kaupapa.
Aha koa e mea ana ka tutuki ngā mahi a te tihema o tēnei taurua mano rua te kaumātoru. Hara I te mea e mea ana hau kia horo, engari kia kakama tātou.
Even though we need to have these completed by December the 23rd, it's not to say that we have to we just must be speedy about it.
Kia ora.
Perhaps if we ask Louisa to comment. that possible?
Kia ora. Yes, so both these projects are sort of behind, but those are factors that have been beyond our control. Mostly the weather. The summertime is normally dry, but we can get a lot of work and make good gains on both these projects, but unfortunately that's not been the case. But they are still being closely managed, and we anticipate they'll be completed in December.
So
Both being very closely managed.
So thank you, Councillor Johnson, for raising it. So we've got, the way I look at this, we've got two little issues. Will contractors be available?
Yes.
Yep. And you're confident that MB will be happy with the end of December?
Yes, we are not the only regional council that are likely to be in the same position, and we're speaking to them next week. They're already aware of the issue that we are behind, and we're having another conversation with them next week.
Thank you. Right, Jeff.
I just have a question for you. Jeff Crawford here. There was the Far North District Council wanted to pull, was it 1.7 million in the project? That was a meeting in November. Has that been resolved?
To pull from which project?
From the Oturia project, sorry, I mean.
I'd have to find out the answer to that from you.
Okay. That's, yeah, I have got some communication on that because I'm the chair of that. I just want to make sure that that is being secured from the Far North District Council. The Far North, I think it was either 1.7 or around the 1 million. I can't, sorry, I haven't got it in front of me, but I can send those minutes on to you. I just want to make 100% sure that that is still secured funds.
John, I want to answer to that?
Yeah.
Kia ora, Councillor. Oturia Moriwa flood scheme, we were short of funds. We got some additional funds from Kanoa, from the government. Also, we went to Far North District Council with their Better Off funding that they received as part of the Three Waters program. We sought, I believe it was $1.5 million. We got allocated $1.25 million, which left us a shortfall of $250,000. We're still in discussions as to how we can fill that gap. Equally, the team is looking hard at where we can make savings within the project. If we don't use our contingency, then that would cover that at any rate. The previous council made the decision that we were going to proceed. We were halfway through the project. We needed to keep going. It was a vital bit of infrastructure to support the community. We've got a note in our annual plan consultation material that's going out to for consultation that highlights to the community that we still have a small shortfall in funding, but we're not going out consulting to increase the rates to fill that at this stage, as we're looking at all other avenues to try and fill that shortfall. It is a flag, though, to the community that we may need to come back in the long-term plan if we can't find any other funding sources, and we may need to have a discussion through the long-term plan to fill that shortfall if it eventuates.
Okay, so is this, sorry, John, is this part of the funding that might slow this operation down?
The project is still humming along. The funding isn't what's holding it up at the moment. The two things that have held us up so far have been weather, and was making sure that we followed a thicker process for engaging with the Māori owners of land that have allowed us access to be able to put in a bridge across their land, and it was multiply owned Māori land. We needed to go through a Māori land court process, and that took a little bit longer than was otherwise required when the project came.
Councillor Robinson.
Yeah, just an additional question to that, and thanks for bringing that up, Jeff, is are we still in continued discussions with the Far North District Council to put money up for it?
It's 1.25.
That's an ongoing conversation at the moment. I had previously been engaging with the previous CE. I'll have to catch up with Weezer. I'm not sure if there's ongoing conversations at the moment or not, but I'll need to pick it up with the new CE.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any further questions of staff or any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary, carried. Item 7.1, elected members' expenses and allowances policy update. Do I have a mover?
Both recommendations?
Councillor Stallworth? Yeah, we'll do them together, yeah. Both recommendations. seconded Councillor Jones. Just to give you advance, I did intend to move an amendment, but I've since changed my mind.
What do you want to double it?
So, any discussion on the amended policy? We've been through this in a workshop in quite some detail. No questions? All those in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Scroll down a wee bit. 7.2, appointment of council registrar, pecuniary interest register. This is obviously just an admin matter. We have two recommendations. We can take them together, can't we? Yes, we can. Does anyone like to move? Councillor McDonald, second. Councillor Blackwell. Is there any discussion? Marty?
Yeah, yes, please. Yeah. I just wonder, is this a matter for us to have to act on, or is this CE space?
Under the legislation, council is required to appoint a registrar. It could be your CEO if you chose to. The report is proposing that I'm your registrar.
Okay, I was just wondering whether it was just an operational matter or whether it was governance. So I'm not going to get hung up on it, but happy to go with the motion.
Yeah, well, the fourth paragraph says under the new legislation, each council is required to appoint a registrar. So I guess it is a decision that has to come to this forum. So,
okay, yep.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Amy.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge Chris for being willing to take on this additional role, because I know that Chris is extremely busy with all her other roles to support our governance here at NRC. And just to acknowledge that it's been quite a big shift that's happened this year with the new legislation, and as councillors we've really benefited from your support and guidance to get through that. So thank you, Chris.
Sure. Yeah. I'm sure she'll be remembered. This will be remembered at performance review. Yeah. That's a little verbal memo to the CE. So any other discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Contrary? Carried. Item 7.3, delegations for proposed regional plan appeals. I guess it'd be Ruben to discuss. If is there any questions? Michael here. Michael is here. Oh, good. Do we have a mover?
No, we're moving all four at once, or?
Let's have a look. We look.
So you need to.
Oh, we can. We can.
We need some names.
We need some names. Yeah.
Yes, we do. Can I move
1 and 2?
We can do 1 and 2 together, can't we?
I'll move 1 and 2. Thanks.
Thank you, Rick. Second for items 1 and 2. Councillor Robinson. Any discussion on those two recommendations? I'll just read them out. The first is that we take the report, and secondly, that Councillor McDonald and the GM Environmental Services, which is Ruben, I guess, be delegated the ability to make decisions on council's behalf for resolving appeals on the proposed regional plan that are generally aligned with the direction already set by council. Okay, any discussion on those two recommendations?
Good job, then.
If not, I'll put them. All those in favour? Contrary?
Shouldn't be that much left.
Carried. Thank you. Right, do we do 3 or 4 together?
Or the new plants that are getting coming out. New freshwater
You
plants.
could have done 4 with 1, couldn't you?
You can do 3 and 4 together if you've got some names.
Okay, so we'll do 3 and 4 together. Now, I guess we'll have some discussion before we put it. Amy.
Can I just suggest that the 4 councillors who sit on the Natural Resources Working Party are the 4 that are put together in this, what's it called? The delegated authority. So that would be myself, Councillor Jeff Crawford, Marty Robinson and Joe Carr.
Sounds outstandingly logical to me. Is there any discussion on that before we put that?
Yes, please.
Marty?
Yeah, my discussion is I think there should be 5 on the party so that there's a majority of council, so that it doesn't need to come back to the main table if there's a consensus there.
It would still have.
Yeah, no, I've sort of talked myself into answering my own question there.
Just under recommendation 4, my understanding is that group would need to be unanimous for it to carry.
Yeah, quite right.
So
Thank you, Marty.
I'll go with Amy's
Well,
recommendation.
Good. No, I'll reiterate that I think there should be 5 to be unanimous so that we know it would go through council. If there's 4 that are unanimous and for some reason the rest of the table of the full council table is not happy with it, then it will be a sticky situation, I think. So that's why I recommend 5, not 4.
Well, I think that there's a logic to it, Marty. I mean, it would actually circumvent the need to come back to council if you've got 5 that are unanimous. So obviously that's decision made. So, Jonathan, what do you think?
Oh, kia ora, Chair. I think there's some good logic for the 4 members of the Natural Resources Working Party. The more councillors you get there, the more challenging it is to find a time that everyone can meet. There is some logic to having 5 there as well. However, I think 4 councillors is a pretty good number of yourselves there to be providing that direction.
So just to recap, the 4 councillors are?
Myself.
Yeah.
Jeff, Marty and Joe.
Joe. Does anyone like to speak in favour of Marty's suggestion? I'm sympathetic, but because of Joe.
E tautoko ana hau I ngā whakaaro kei muri e nei tuhi.
I support the thought behind what is written here.
Engari ko taku āwangawanga I nā e whakatakoto ana tētahi apira e ahu mai ana rānei e nā apira I ngā hapu me ngā iwi kia whai wāhi ngā mema Māori ki te tautoko. Hara I te mea e mea ana hau me whakapiki ake te nama o ngā mema, engari kia whai wāhi atu I a hau rānei ki te tautoko I a Amy.
I'm not concerned necessarily with the number, but it's it would be great to have hapu voices to support the decisions that the group makes.
Ai, nā reira kei te whakaaro hau I nā e hiehia ana Amy ki etahi āwhina.
If Amy would like some support or help in the area.
Ka whai wāhi a hau ki te tautoko āwaia ātuhi tuhi rānei.
I'd be there to support through email or on the phone.
Kia ora.
So to point out that that delegation to 4 council laws is only where resolutions depart from earlier council direction. I mean, just I imagine 90% of them will be actually done as a matter of course, well, with a GM and 1 councillor. So you know, I'm just wondering if we're not actually over analysing the issue.
I'm very happy with 4. I think I certainly understand what the CEO is saying. We struggle to get, if we had 5, we'd struggle to get 5 there. We've only got 7 today out of 9, you know, so you're not probably going to get all 5 anyway. And, you know, I have faith in that working party for sure. So I'm very happy with 4.
He kōrero anō tāku e te mea mana. He tautoko ana hau I ngā ingoa. Engari ko te mea ke e hoatu ana hau I etahi kupu āwhina I nā e hiehia ana.
Just adding words of support if it's required. I fully support the performance.
Okay, so it's looking, I'm sensing there's no appetite to increase the number to 5, Marty.
I was just thought of having, for transparency's sake, of having one of the tangata whenua members also, if they were to go to that 5th, I would think that the chair is ex officio. I'm not sure on that one. But I'd like to see it for that transparency's sake.
Kia ora, Chair. Just to clarify, the Chair wouldn't be ex officio on this particular group. She's ex officio on your other working, where you've got the terms of reference that clearly states that. So at this stage, she would not be ex officio on this particular group.
Okay, but also bear in mind that if the decision is not unanimous, the decision reverts back to council.
Yeah.
So I think we've got enough protection. I think the recommendations that have enough safeguards in them. Any other discussion?
Kia ora, Chair, if I could just, so this is my background, I've been here and done this a lot. In the past, councillors had just had 2 councillors there, if that provides any context. Previous councils have just delegated this authority to 2, so we've doubled the number. Make sure that there's sufficient political support and able to sort of canvass as many of yourselves. We thought it was a reasonable balance.
Okay, wrap this up.
Te hea mana e tautoko ana hau i ngā ingoa e whā, me ngā tūranga e whā.
I support the 4 names and the positions.
Thank you, thank you. So we have a mover, Councillor MacDonald, and we have the 4 names. Can we have a seconder to that motion, please? Councillor Crawford? Any other questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Good discussion, by the way. And now we move on to 7.4. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Independent Risk Advisor recruitment. Bruce isn't here. He's ill.
I can speak to it if there are any questions.
So you can speak to it. Perhaps you might want to actually give us some discussion right now.
Move it first.
Well, I think we might make an idea if we discussion first, actually, just to clarify.
You could move and second the first resolution to get the tape on the table.
Oh, sorry, yes, there's 3 of them. Okay, first resolution.
Thanks.
Councillor Stolwart. Second, Councillor MacDonald. Recommendation 1, that the report be received. Any discussion on that? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Right, now discussion on, because there's a little bit of a level of complexity in this. So if Jonathan can please explain to us.
Kia ora, Chair. As Council's aware, our independent risk advisor resigned during the previous council's term. The previous council made the decision at that point to put on hold the recruitment for an independent risk advisor, given that elections were on the doorstep, and leave that role for consideration from the new council. We've workshopped it with the new council, and the direction of the staff was that you would like to proceed with a recruitment of an independent risk advisor. The independent risk advisor is a member of would become a member of the Audit and Risk Committee. This paper here outlines a process for the recruitment of our independent risk advisor. We have, it's consistent with Council's policy around how in the process that we go through for the appointment of independent advisors, and it also proposes the establishment of a committee of councillors to interview applicants and make recommendations to council for council's approval, final decision for appointment of the advisor. Happy to answer any further questions.
Okay, just it's non-voting, isn't it? Non-voting.
I'm shutting my eyes and going from memory here, but
it.
yes, my recollection is that your 2 independent, both your financial and your risk advisors were non-voting, but that your independent tangata whenua advisors were members plus voting.
Got that.
Is that your understanding, Stuart?
No, sorry. I thought that the audit in the audit and risk subcommittee, the independent members are voting, but in the property and investment subcommittee are not non-voting.
See, and you can have a quick look.
And that was a recent change that you've just made. Previous to that, you're quite correct. We were both non-voting on both subcommittees.
So I can confirm that the investment and property subcommittee,
that's right,
the independent advisors are both non-voting.
Yeah.
I'll just quickly go and have a look at the other one.
Audit and risk, they have voting rights.
They do have voting rights.
They do have voting
rights.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So that doesn't actually alter the tenor of the recommendations, though, does it?
No.
No, at all. Okay. So any further comment on recommendations 2 and 3? I'll read them. Recommendation 2 is the council commences recruitment for an independent risk advisor, and recommendation 3 is that Councillor Stolwart, Jones and Chair Shortland be appointed as the panel to shortlist and interview applicants for the independent risk advisor role and make a recommendation for appointment to council. Seems quite clear. Any further discussion?
Do we have a mover and seconder for those?
Do we have a mover and seconder? Councillor McDonald, seconded Councillor Blackwell. All those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Sorry, I got that out of whack, didn't I? All right. Moving on down.
Chair, so now we move to our tabled agenda, item 7.5, which is NRC's representation on the Joint Regional Economic Development Committee.
I'll just sum up, thank you. Now, that was in Big Tin Can. Oh, sorry. Kindly give me a copy. I hope everyone's had a chance to read it. I guess they have. And for everyone else's benefit, we had a discussion in COT this morning. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Stolwick, seconded Councillor Blackwell. Any discussion on this? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
That means we're back up to 8.1 now, are we?
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
55.
Health and safety report. Is Tam here? Oh, may not need discussion. Oh, Bill's here. Thank you. Okay. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Jones, seconded Councillor Robinson. Okay. Is there any discussion? I'd just like to say it's great to have a new advisor. And I see our stats seem to be moving in the right direction, aren't they? Which is good.
I've got a question.
Yeah, thank you, Marty. Question.
You just got a question, a clarification on the residual risk score, how that's obtained. It's a number.
Through the chair, we look at what mitigations are put in place, and there's a rating scale whereby it's frequency of occurrences against the type of injury or level of injury. So high risk, potential death would actually come out at a very, very high score. So it goes down to minimum risk, minimum injury, so therefore gets a low score. So that's after the mitigations. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you, Tams. And just back up on that one. Then your COVID-19 still having that serious an impact on the staff and with that high residual score. Then is it, or is it starting to peter out?
It's starting to peter out, but there is always still the potential for death. That's why it is still high. It's unlike, well, the likelihood is low, but there is still potential there.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's just to clarify. That's actually it's nothing to do with prevalence. It's just the risk of each occurrence if it should occur. Councillor McDonald.
Yep. Thank you. Just clarifying for Marty, because you might not be able to see, but that's Beryl who's speaking with you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thanks, Beryl.
That's all good. I just had a question just around the recent issues we have had with our weather and the impact that's had on our roads and safe passage. So I guess just wondering, is there a health and safety view on how we are supporting staff to move around the region and beyond the region safely, given the state of our roads and the impact that has on travel time and things like that? Is that something we're proactively looking at?
At the health and safety meeting last week, it was discussed, the potential hazards on the road and things like that. So the reps were to go out and actually have a discussion with their teams or their departments, and just making sure that staff were aware of the issues, and just to make sure that they checked, did a check before they actually went out on the roads. As to the extra time it will take, that I don't think has actually been looked at, but I can mention it to Tamsin.
Thank Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Beryl. I'd like to see the tracking on per capita isn't too bad. Yeah, obviously the incidences are up, but so staff numbers. So I think we're tracking along not too bad. Thank you. Any other questions at all? Do you have a mover and seconder? You do. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary, carried. Thank you, Beryl. 8.2, CE's report. Now, do we have a mover? Councillor Crawford, secondly, Councillor McDonald. Sorry, Councillor Robinson. Now, moving slowly through it, anyone got any questions? I know there'll be quite a few.
Any update, Colin, on Doug's boatyard? Is it?
Yeah,
It seems to have been on here since I was.
Council Storick, yeah, it's still before the courts, but the court said there was no need to have a formal hearing on the matter, so it's been done on the papers, so we're just awaiting the decision. So it's in the hands of the court.
Good. Okay, thank you. Thanks very much.
He kōrero tāku e te hea mana. Ina e paparo ana tātou ki te kōti mo te taiao, me te take e pāna ki te mea kua kōrero hia e Rick.
If we talking about the environmental court and the issue raised by Rick.
Me mahara hoki tātou ki a Mikey Marks, ko mai ki te tahi o ngā kuia. E hāpai ana I te taha ki ngā hapu me ngā iwi. Kua roa tērā kuia e mauri ana tēnei kaupapa.
Mikey Marks must also be taken into consideration as a kuia, as an elderly woman who's been supporting the issues, environmental issues.
Kia ora. Kia ora. Moving down the report, any other highlights? I've got one little highlight. I think in terms of highlights, I don't think we highlighted our successes quite as well as we might, especially just the highlights package at the top, especially our successes in freshwater partnerships and our lakes work, and also our environmental education. I don't really describe about that much, but I attended the Portland School Environmental Award Silver Award a couple of Fridays ago, and I was absolutely knocked out by how much they love NRC and how much we're helping them to achieve great things in their little village. It was very, very motivating for me, and it reflects very well on council too. And I'd just like to thank Susan and her team of advisors and the fine work they do there. Anyway, moving on down. Amy.
Thank you, Jono, for the report. Always excellent reading, quite a lot of reading, but always really good content. Obviously, massive thank you to Civil Defence and our emergency management teams for the work that they've been involved in and actually continue to do currently. I just wanted to highlight the section on climate change and just remind councillors that this is the place that we can get our monthly update on the climate change mihi happening at council, and without a working party this is a really important place to be across it. And Jono, just a question for you. On page 101 there is a reference to under the policy updates for climate change, there was a piece of work released by the government which is about guidance for councils on how we can have regard to the National Adaptation Plan and Emissions Reduction Plan. And it's sort of a precursor to further legislative things that will come out later this year. I would be really keen to have a workshop on that to get really good collective understanding of what we could be doing now within our current framework to get us on best foot forward as we move into that new space. And I think it would be really useful for us to have a collective conversation about that as a council. And the only other question I had, which relates to that piece of work that the government have put out, is they're talking about our role in transport planning. And I see later in the agenda there's a decision point coming up whether the regional land transport plan will be reviewed. And so wondering how we make sure we have a NRC conversation about climate change mitigation of emissions in relation to transport planning and how we bring that to the collective view of our regional transport plan with the district councils as well. So just wondering what space we can ensure that connection is happening at a governance level. I know that the staff sit together in terms of the GM, but that's a crucial opportunity that we can't miss.
Any comments, Councillor Blackwell?
I agree with what Amy said. As far as climate goes, I think our shipping access would be our best option today, going by our roads, airports and rail. Well, so yeah, I think it's really crucial because this is such an important part of the north and it's holding us back. I know it's costing us a lot of money up here now for the diversion Auckland going via Darwin 50-tonne trucks. You probably don't realise it, but imagine a 50 supermarket here. Yeah, I think we have to look at it. Yeah,
I think we all agree. I mean, I was at civil defence political meeting, which were daily through the crisis. I asked the question one day, with all the roads going out, why isn't Kiwi Rail in the room? Graham McDonald came back with the answer that Kiwi Rail were dealing with several huge slips over there, over the road line, including that massive one down at Hiki Roa, and it's this massive slip right over the road and the rail, and they've currently got 50 slips over the railway line between Helensville and here. 50. I mean, that's monumental, isn't it? So yeah, I don't think anyone's under any illusions about the size of the problem we face right now. So I guess we're up to taking advice as to what the best way we can get some government funding. I know we had the Prime Minister here and the chair has met and the CEO have met with him, and we've had some reassuring noises in a media release back to us. Any other comments?
Kia ora, Chair, only to acknowledge the 2 points that were raised there by Councillor McDonald, and that very happy to have those 2 points added to a council workshop for further discussion. The first point that you raised, Councillor McDonald, is totally an internal thing for us as to how we take that guidance and how that is applied across our business. The other one is what's the connection between us and the Regional Land Transport Committee in making those considerations. Obviously, we've got Councillor Blackwell and Councillor Carr that are our representatives on the Regional Transport Committee, and that's where that decision sits. However, if Council wishes to workshop those topics and provide some feedback to our 2 representatives on that committee, then that's a good course of action to have that korero at Council.
You obviously don't want to be doing anything without Councillor Carr in the room, eh? For that, it's important that he is. Do we have someone from staff? Amy.
Yeah, if I can just clarify as well, so absolutely agree that the climate change adaptation is likely to get over the line in terms of the RLTP. There's almost no denying that there's a need to review our transport infrastructure in light of climate change impacts. Equally, we have a responsibility for reviewing our land transport planning in relation to emissions reduction, which is quite a new thing for regional government to have to consider. So just making clear that when we workshop it internally, I think we need to talk about both and then empower our committee members to lead that korero in that shared forum.
Jeff.
Yes, just a question on behalf of Councillor Joe Carr. He's not here, but I know that he's been very upset about this issue, and I'd just like to bring it up with Colin. It's these two issues there, Colin, and consents, is the Kaikoui sewage treatment plant. He is very upset that the consent expired in 2021 and that there's still major issues, unswimmable issues that flow into his harbour estuary. I don't know where he lives, and he's really strong in advocating that. He feels that the Northern Regional Council has let his community down in that area, and that I see that it's you've got in here. It doesn't look like it's got it's coming up for 2 years old now that the consent has run out. And I don't know what's your position there, Colin, if you could just go over that and the Kaitaia one.
So the Kohu one, if you look in the consent report, a hearing has been scheduled for that. That's now May for the hearing. One of the delays in that was with trying to run the open only Māpuru one and Kohu consecutively because they're in the same harbour, if you like.
Yep.
So there's been some background to delays. We recognise that there have been delays. One of those is waiting for a cultural impact assessment. At the end of the day, we've now set the hearing date, so that's where the matter's at. So,
okay, can you communicate that with Councillor Joe Carr? He's advocating on behalf of his community. He feels like the Northern Regional Council has let him down here, but not enough pressure on the Far North District Council with the inactivity, really. So,
as I said, we'll schedule that hearing.
Yeah.
That's where we can force the issue. It's a fine balance. We do, sometimes there's good reasons for delay, but we have to make a call about enough's enough in terms of time to deal with those issues, and that's why we.
So I'm unfamiliar with these sewage works. Is 2 years is a normal period to help with the transition?
Again, it varies. Some go quicker than others. Sometimes you get into a situation where you have a number of submitters and both parties want to talk with each other rather than go straight to a hearing, because there's effort involved on behalf of submitters and an applicant in terms of preparing for hearing. So like a lot of these things, there might be goodwill to see they can resolve an issue, but at the end of the day, it may not completely resolve the issue, but at least it narrows down the issues. You also mentioned Kaitaia, but I wasn't sure about what.
Yeah, just reading your report here because they're just below each other, sorry, and it looks like, sorry, my computer's just. They look like, Kaitaia has expired in 2021. Replacement consent application has been received, but it's still coming up to nearly 2 years. Is this a normal lag period?
Well, yeah, it's. I don't know the term normal is what I'm trying to explain. It does vary, but for some of these more major ones, then yes, you can expect there to be a gap between expiry and granting of the new consent, and that can be months, years. So it's not untypical. But as I was trying to explain, there are various reasons that dictate how long it takes. We are trying to get applicants, and it's not just district councils, applicants in general, to do a bit more work up front. And that's where doing more work up front can reduce potential delays when an application is lodged.
So the new government regulations around the water that have come out, that Amy's in charge of, do you start running your measuring tape over these sort of consents now, or, because they're pretty stringent? In your opinion, how many of these sites that you monitor would actually qualify for the new regulations that we're consenting until 2024? Like you're doing.
Sorry, when you say consenting is 2024?
Well, there's new freshwater rules that will be coming out after 2024.
So
is it the Tiomana OY? How do you say that?
So in the consent process, that's all factored in, and that is taken into account when we're putting on consent conditions.
Have you got enough people working on this? Like, are you short-staffed?
It's not so much. Often some of the delays, and going back to the one on Kohu, originally it was scheduled for hearing this month, but because of unavailability of key, if you like, people who were providing evidence for a hearing, we did have to reschedule that. So often it's about trying to get a whole lot of people in the same place at the same time, and we can't necessarily envisage there's some things happen that are beyond our control. So it's unfortunate that sometimes that means that we just have to wait for the best window of opportunity. It's not always as early as we'd like.
So if I can wrap this up, I'd just like to point out that, well, I'd like to state at Colin's behalf that he's being very diplomatic. It's not actually our problem, it's the problem of the district councils, but we're the enforcement agency here. And also that Colin reports those shortcomings or failures or inability to get the consent monthly. So we are well aware, as are the district councils, in particular one district council. But I just also like to point out those 3 letters that the CE sent out yesterday, was it? To those councils stating what they need to be doing.
Yeah.
And the intention for us to be reminding them every 6 months until we get satisfaction.
No, that's fine. I did see that. Joe asked me if he didn't make it to bring this point up because he's it's been on his radar for quite some time.
And I mean, I'm glad you raised it because I mean, it was anticipated by some that the 3 Waters review would actually, when it passed, legislation passed, that the problem would shift from being a district council problem to a government problem. That's no longer clear. So we don't know. So I think that the CE's response was the perfect response, in my view. We have to assume that there was no 3 Waters process is going to go forward. We can't make that assumption. So we're moving. So we're actually highlighting, putting the spotlight on their responsibilities now. Marty, you had a question.
Yeah, just a back up, and thanks for bringing up Joe's question there, Jeff. Is we have to find a better way to treating all waste, is my own personal opinion. But I've sort of posed a rhetorical question: what is moderately non-compliant, and how would that look on a dairy farm? And the reason I say it is we focus on an individual who craps in the creek or where effluent is allowed to escape, but we don't look at ourselves as a whole of community to say this must stop, because it's not just FNDC, but it's us as everybody that's contributing into that problem. So how are we going to address it if we're having challenges addressing the council itself? Are we going to have any more success with this new 3 Waters governance setup? Or are we just going to be even a smaller minion who's just going to have to take it as that entity sees fit?
Sounds like a rhetorical question, actually, Marty. I don't think anyone here can answer that. We don't know, do we?
Well, we should. If we don't know, then that's something that should be really red flagged towards these new entities and towards that government program. Is this really going to fix the problem any faster than a council might be able to do fully funded?
Kia ora, Councillor.
Pose that question. Yeah.
The intention from the Crown is that the new structure and the new entities will deliver higher levels of service and improved outcomes for our communities and for our waterways. That's the rationale for which they're proposing the 3 Waters reform. Our role, we'll still have a regulatory role within that framework. We need to develop a relationship agreement with that entity, and they'll still need to comply with the regional plan rules, which are set by regional and local government in the regions. Just to further flesh out what the Chair was saying, I think there is an opportunity for us as the regulator to be as proactive as we can and make sure that we're really diligent in ensuring we fulfil our regulatory roles when it comes to the 3 Waters infrastructure. Hence why I circulated those letters that we've sent to the 3 CEs earlier this week, and the intention that Colin and his team will meet with his counterparts now on a 6-monthly basis to essentially go through a project plan for each of those systems. What is your project plan for addressing any significant non-compliance and for ensuring that we can progress those resource consent renewals in a timely fashion? And my intention is that that's an ongoing process, and that every 6 months we'll send out another letter with any updates and any further things that we need to highlight at a CE level.
Nā koe te hea mana. E kite ana hau kua rārangi hia e nei wāhi Kua wāwahi e nei wāhi me ngā rerenga tūtai I roto I e nei wāhi.
I can see that these places have been outlined with the effluent disposal.
Kamutu, ko tāku, me āhua rereke, me whakarereke te āhua o te takoto o e nei mea I roto I e nei rerenga, rārangi. Nā te mea,
We have to change how they're identified and laid out here.
kia kite atu tātou, ko tēhea te mea matua, hei whakatika mā tātou I te tuatai.
To identify key priority areas.
Nā te mea, e rārangi ana e nei pēnei me te alphabet. Me rereke te āhua o te takoto o e nei mahi. Kia tika ai tā tātou titiro ki ngā mahi hei mahi matua.
You must highlight from top priority all of these different places and how we write them.
Is it possible to prioritise most critical?
Chair, we can take that away and take a look at that. Yeah. I would just caution like all of them for those particular, for any particular community is going to be a priority. Yeah. And I guess our challenge is to make sure that Colin's got the capacity and the resource to advance them as quickly as we can as the regulator. I don't know if we identify one community as not the priority. So yes, I'll come and have a look at it and come back to you as to how we can best show, maybe it's more around significance rather than priority, significance of non-compliance, significance of in the process for renewing consents. We can have a look at that. I don't have an answer off the top of my head though for you.
Kei te pai, he kōrero anō tāku, e te hea whanau.
Right.
Oh, just a quick comment. It's great to see the Waikiri too coming along so well. It's been, I know there's been hiccups, but for those new councillors, hopefully we can have a visit to it sometime if we're up that way, because it's well overdue. And I know there's been a lot of issues with sunken vessels and things, and this boat will be a huge asset to the maritime team.
Yeah, it's good to see it making good progress with that help. Yeah. And also Niwa, I guess we're actually scheduled to go to Niwa tomorrow. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Any other matters in the city's report?
Hoi anō e te hea mana, ko ngā wāhi e whakaro ana hau, ko ngā wāhi e kohi kai ana, ngā whānau me ngā hapu. Hei awhi I te tumuaki ki te rārangi I ngā mahi matua. Nā te mea I nā e rere ana te tūtai ki ngā wāhi e hi ika ana, e kohi kaimo ana, he āhuatanga tērā ka pā ki te hauora o te tangata.
Priority areas that see could look at first are areas where kaimoana seafood are gathered.
Significance. I think it's the Hokianga Harbour.
Cause that. Yeah.
Well, there's 3 sewage works that run into the Cape Hokianga Harbour at the moment. There's just one more I've got to bring up, and I've been discussing this with Don about biosecurity. You know how the Environment Court released the non-fish tape that's come out, and that the Northern Regional Council is probably going to have to become the policeman around that. This is a major issue to be thrust on the Northern Regional Council. It's under proposed Regional Council appeals. Okay, so you've got Oakey Bay, you've got the Cape Brett area down to Elliott's Bay, and then you've got the mini whangata issues. Now, and I'm supporting Don. I think the resources that he's going to need to get this over the line, to put it into a position that NRC can control or have some sort of control, is, I don't think we shouldn't underestimate it, because fishing is one of the major pastimes in Northland, and if you're going to do something, it's got to be right, otherwise the NRC is going to get egg on their face by not having a proper plan. And I'd like to see some resources go into Don. He's going to work on a plan, and in discussions with him and other parties, but we cannot be half asleep at the wheel with this issue coming up. This is big for Northland and big for the surrounding communities, and if we don't do it properly, we are going to be the losers. We're going to be the losers trying to be policemen with this. But we need to find out which is a proper plan and allocate some resources to support Don on this. I don't think he's got a plan yet, but it's going to be with the CE. I think as councillors, we all need to be aware of it because it impacts us all. We all know somebody who loves fishing. And these are the key fishing spots.
Kia ora, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. This is a topic for a workshop this afternoon also.
Yeah.
And the workshop this afternoon has got an introductory paper to cover off exactly what you're speaking about there. We've got some different scenarios that we're looking for governance guidance, both on governance and implementation, but also on cost of implementation. And through that workshop, we're looking for a high-level steer from yourselves, where we can then go away and work it up further. But totally tautoko the highlight that you're making on it, as in the process to get to here hasn't been highly involved with our communities, and we need to the process from here going forward needs to have that high level of involvement, and it won't be resource. It will be resource intensive.
Oh, I believe we have Councillor Carr online. Welcome, Joe, if you're there.
You there? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Joe.
Yes. Well, thank you, and apologies. It took me a long time to actually get linked up, and in doing so, I lost my agenda off the can. So I can look and listen and maybe make some comments. I should have printed it, but it was such a big agenda. I didn't want to waste the paper. But yeah.
Okay, thanks, Joe. So we understand you're not on camera, but you can't see us, but it's just sound only. Is that right?
I can see you. You're looking wonderful, and I could turn the camera on if you wish to see me.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine, Joe. Thank you. Thank you. We're halfway through these 8.2, which is the CE's report, and Jeff has raised a couple of matters of importance to you. And at the moment, he's just been talking about the item that's going to be our workshop item this afternoon, which is the new fishing controls now need to be the regulatory authority there. So are there any other issues? I've got two little things I want to raise on the CE's report, but if anyone else got any others they want to raise?
Yes, please, Chair.
Something?
Yeah, yes, please. Page 79, the Biosecurity Conference in Paihia. We are now in the year of 2023. Paihia was, my great-great-great-grandparents were invited onto the beach, so I suppose I'd declare a bit of an interest. In 1823, this is Paihia 200. So if that could be added to the blurb to publicise the event, because it's probably 200 years since pests arrived in Paihia. So we've got a bicentenary of pests arriving. So if you can touch on that in Paihia with the Biosecurity Conference. On page 80, also the biosecurity, there's no mentions of dogs in Te Aotearoa Tohe. I wonder if that is coming onto your into your sites, Jono, or is it just remaining on the Beach Management Board's sites?
Kia ora, Māori. I haven't seen an update on that personally for a little while. I wonder, Don, is there any update from yourself?
Kia ora, Mr. Chair. I haven't got anything in the last 2 months. But I do know that there has been initiatives taken by Kiwi Coast to begin workshops for training dogs and better control of dogs in the far north. That's about the limit of the information I've received. Yeah.
I'm talking more about those marauding dogs who have got the potential to maul visitors should they potentially. So they're a real risk with the.
No further word on that. There's been no further instances. quite a few dogs have been removed by local kaimahi in the far north. There's been no other instances of dogs mauling stock.
Thanks, Don. Going on to page 91, 92, just a bit of a clarification on the bus services. Is that revenue, is that net revenue or just income? And also on page 92, that far north spend is considerably down on budget. Spending $5,800 was budgeted, only 800 expenditure. So it's considerably down. Is there can you give a bit of clarification on that, please?
Louisa?
Are you, thank you, Chair, through the Chair. Are you talking about the total mobility for that, Councillor Robinson?
That table, yes, it is the total mobility, yes.
So there's some challenges there with finding providers for the total mobility in the far north. And there's some comments in the text there that talk about we're looking for additional providers for that.
Thank you. And my final question is on page 93, where we have 34 fatalities. There are 34 deaths on northern roads, but it doesn't really reflect itself in that bottom part of that table, where there's only 5. So it says for the 2022 calendar year to date, there have been 34 deaths on northern roads, but the breakdown only points out 5. And I just want a little bit of clarification on that one. It may just be need a bit of a revision on that table.
Yep, so I'll have a look at that and we'll get back to you with some clarification on those figures.
Yeah, thank you. That's all. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Marty. Look, I've got 2 little comments. The Water Resilience Fund, I've had a couple of people comment to me about how grateful they are to have it. And but with success breeding success, they also wanted to know how their community couldn't get on board as well. So, but it just highlighted to me that probably would be a good idea for us to get some photographs of the stuff that's worked already, bring them forward to council, or if we intend to have a road trip that we could perhaps call in and see one of them. And lastly, it'd be remiss of me if I didn't mention the magnificent performance of our CDEM team, Graham and his team, through the last series of emergencies. Now, Tuli and I were online at least once a day, monitoring that with mayors and chairs and politicians and key people. And I just have to say how much pride I felt in the way that Graham and the people that he manages responded. They had the answers to every question. And if you have a look at the way that Northland itself, the whole of Northland, cooperated. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the police or you're talking about defence forces, we're talking about so many different marae committees, and you're talking about community groups and Fonterra and everybody. Every single organisation seemed to pull finger. And there was I didn't see any internal fighting about this, or just everybody seemed to be working. There's more than just community spirit here. That this must be superior organisation and superior leadership. So I think we all owe Graham and his team a lot, and so does Northland, for the way that they've conducted this. Now, I also know quite a lot of the details about how things were handled in at least one other region, and I can say that the difference is stark between how we do civil defence and how other regions do it. And when I spoke to Graham about that, he said, oh, well, he just said we get plenty of practice. So, but it's a lot more than that. It's a real leadership. So that's just, I'd like to make a comment there. Joe has his hand up. Kia ora, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. Am I coming through?
Yes.
Oh, good. If I could follow on, just tag on regarding the Cyclone Gabrielle. I did at one of our SITREP briefing reports mention the Omanaya River and a whole lot of poplars that have been flattened there. I don't know how that's been picked up and handled, but I've had another contact from Rural Support who have had the matter referred to them by an NRC staff officer asking Rural Support to help clear that the poplars are now laying in the river at Omanaya, and it's really not Rural Support's job. So if I could leave that with the CEO to follow up and keep me briefed. The property owner is called Alan Shepherd, and it's going round and circles. If I could be kept briefed on what's happening on that one, Chair, I'd be very appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for calling it, Joe. Noted. That'll be action. Thank you. Any other questions on the SEES report? We have a mover and seconder? We do. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary? Carry. Thank you. Item 8.3, reporting on long-term plan performance measures recorded 2. Robin.
We've actually got Kyla here today.
Kyla can do it.
Simpson.
Floor is yours. Do we have a mover?
I'll move it. Thank you.
Rick, seconded. John.
Brief summary.
Yes, please.
So this is a quarterly report to council. It reports on the long-term plan key performance indicators. This is usually done by exception, so I'd like to draw council's attention to the question that is posed in the report, which is around the level of information you would like to receive in these reports. The majority of the KPIs are reported on annually. There are 10 that are reported on in Q2, which is halfway through the reporting period, and only I think 4 or 5 that are reported on every quarter. So the question is, would you like to receive the level of detail that is set out in this report? Or would you prefer it to be by exception only, so you only receive a report on those measures that are not tracking to completion?
Amy.
I like exception only.
Yes. Do you?
Personally, yeah, I do. And, relating to the earlier conversation, this is at a certain level of visibility, and there's another level of visibility that I'm keen on. But I can see that Jack doesn't agree with me, so I guess we'll see what other people think. Kia ora.
Rick.
I'm exception only. Thank you, Kyla. So I'll be very happy. Just the ones that aren't tracking. Perfect.
I'll get mine in first. I'll get mine in early before I get outnumbered. I like this. I like the format we have because it's really nice to record that we're making our marks. So rather than just having the bad news, I quite like having the good news. I mean, I think that this data is good. I mean, we're performing very well.
Yeah.
All of them, right from science right through, I think. So I'm happy to keep with this format.
Yeah, I like to back you up too, because I'm all about winning. And the more wins we have, I can relate that to the community, because it's all about success and not about where we're trying to get to. People like to hear success stories first, and then those really we can focus on how we can get to that level. Not only that, it keeps everybody, buoyed up by where we are hitting target. So that's only my take.
Tēnā koe te hea mana.
Thank you, Jimmy.
E tautoko ana hau I te āhua o tēnei pepa. Ko tāku hei āwhina.
I support how this is laid out. I just have some words.
Kia hau nei, me titiro anō tātou ki te compliance monitoring ne, nā te mea koia tēnā ko tātou ake tikanga. Me mōhio hoki tātou ki ngā kaupapa hei whakahaere mā tātou, tērā pia me whakarahi ake I te kōrero mō tērā taha. He whakaro noi ho, hei whakaro tanga mā te rō.
I just thought for the group that we
me whakarahi ake I te āhua o ngā kōrero mo te arotake, mo te arotake mō ngā tikanga. Ara te tuatahi I te mutunga o te whārangi ko tahi rau mā whā, I te kaupapa whakamutunga I tērā.
I would just have to give a bit more credence to or highlight the compliance monitoring aspect of this team.
Right. Joe, any comments?
No comments. Basically, I support your position, Chair, on this one. Yep.
Thank you. Any other comments? Marty.
Just a question of kawiti. Kawiti, should it be manawa ora or manawa roa? It's on page 103.
Manawa roa or, sorry, what was the other one?
Manawa ora. I think it used to be, you might be able to help me on that, Kyla. I know it's semantics, but it's just getting that one right.
I would agree with Manawaroa in that you're wanting to be resilient for long periods of time, so holding out rather than being,
Okay, thank you for that. Kia ora.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Item 9.1, receipt of committee minutes. Right, do I have a mover?
Ai, Maku e Motini.
Councillor Jones? Seeing the councillor McDonald, sorry. Okay. Discussion. Any discussion points, Joe, from the RTC?
Yeah, I would like to comment. The actual the resolutions recorded are correct, but the meeting is incomplete in recording what happened at the meeting. This is of some concern. Is actually before the meeting, order paper was set up. I asked for several items to be included on the order paper, and they weren't. One was actually confirmation of the meeting schedule that we've got laid out in the future, just to check with our members that they were agreeable to it. That didn't occur. And the other one was at the end of the meeting, we wanted an item for members to talk about their constituencies, their voting constituencies, and any issues. And at the moment, with Cyclone Gabriel and other issues, there are some issues that are quite topical. And also we want to discuss future agenda items. We did have that discussion at the end, and it's not recorded in the minutes. And I think it's important that it is recorded in the minutes. I would move that that's what is proffered as the minutes of the meeting are correct but incomplete, and I'd move in that direction if that would help.
I'd second that.
Chair, so only the committee can move a motion that the minutes are correct. We are just receiving them. So when RTC meets next time, they will be considering the trueness and correctness of those minutes, and it's only for that body to do so. We can note down the points that Councillor Carr have made, but it's not the council's place to do that.
It won't be. Yep, that sounds clear. Joe, you understand?
Yep, comfortable with that. And, you know, we're sort of working hard to have a speak with one voice as the RTC, and you know, I think it's most important for Northern councils that we do achieve that. So I'm comfortable with that.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, any other discussion on that item? John.
Yeah, it's an interesting group, and they're really passionate about the roading in Northland, and I think we want to sort of make sure this group is empowered and heard. And although I did chair that meeting with Joe on the phone in the background, it was a challenge, but yeah, I think those points Joe made are very crucial. They need to be recorded. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Item 9.2, working party updates and chairperson's briefings. Do we have a mover? I'll move because I'll do something today. Do we have a seconder? Amy. Councillor McDonald. Okay, any discussion?
Just will the other working parties minutes be presented to the next full council meeting, because there have been other working parties there?
Yes, it's purely a timing issue.
Yep, thank you, Chris. Kia ora.
Which is
Thanks,
the one.
Chair. Yep.
Just the one.
Just the one. Okay. Any other discussion on the public transport working party?
Koe no e te hea mana hei whakamohio atu.
Just to let you know, Chairman.
I tukuna e ahau taku whakapāha ki te hea mana I whakakapi I te hui.
I gave my apologies to the Chairman.
Okay. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Right, we have to, item 10, business with the public excluded. We're moving into
Yep,
confidential. Moved by Councillor Stolwerk, seconded by Councillor Blackwell, that we move into confidential.
Just
all
question,
those in favour?
please.
Sorry.
Before doing that, can we move into a 2-minute break?
Why not?
Go confidential.
We'll go confidential.
In confidence.
Because we don't need to know the reason why. Anyway, all those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried.
Thank you.